Welcome back to another episode of Cape Ann Today. I am speaking with former Boston Globe reporter David Arnold, also a part time Gloucester resident. Arnold has recently helped produce an exhibit entitled Quarry Art, hanging until July 30th at the Janet and William Ellery James Center of the Cape Ann Museum. In conjunction with that exhibition, Arnold has held a Cape Ann Museum talk that included musicians, a poet, a painter, a sculptor, and a dance producer, all making their quarry connections. Arnold has personally created a fascinating way of showing in historic photographs over 100 years pass across a quarry view. Hi, Dave. Thanks for being here.
Good day, Ms. Atwood. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. So let's start by you telling me how you came to Cape Ann and where your fascination with quarries came from.
I came to Cape Ann as a carpetbagger. My parents bought in the 1970s, early 70s. And of course, I fell in love with the place. The quarries have been an issue of late for me just because I feel they are overlooked as assets that we have on Cape Ann. And this was my effort to try to instill respect for these holes in the ground that nature brought back to life.
And are there any particular quarries that you spend time walking around or that go hike to on weekends? Any particular ones you love?
As long as I have permission from homeowners, I could walk them all. We did yesterday in the rain, in the pouring rain, actually.
Pouring rain.
No particular favorites. I find them all magical.
So tell me about this, the exhibit. How did that evolve?
It evolved because I wanted to bring attention to the quarries, and I talked for a bit with Les Bartlett, who's sort of Mr. Quarry on Cape Ann as a historian. And at first I thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting to create a photo contest? And that seemed a little hokey. So I decided to find 9 accomplished photographers who are part-time or full-time Cape Anners. And they were given a year to photograph as they wished. And there were very few limitations.
But so there are these 9 artists who you selected to spend a year shooting quarries. So when you look at the final result, and I did see this show, it's really beautiful. What do you take away from that show?
A good question, and it's a very simple answer. I took away what was missing. These are accomplished photographers. I knew the photos would be good. I knew the statements would be meaningful, but what you're missing in any contemporary photograph is the history of what went into creating these cavities.
Yeah, because they were taking photographs of them obviously today, and now they look as you had said earlier, that nature has reclaimed them and made them what they are today. So we're not seeing the black and white stills of, gigantic just cliffs of rock with workmen there ready to blast, right?
That is correct. Some people don't realize that when you leave the craters totally alone, groundwater slips in, and rainwater together they create basically ponds.
Right, right. So tell us about your work then, because your work sort of bridges that gap, right?
Right. I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to compare scenes then and now? And I'm totally guided by what I was able to get for old photographs. I'm sorry, from South Bay Historical and in Rockport, and also the Cape Ann Museum, which has a phenomenal collection of old photos. And I started with old pictures and decided I would match as precisely as I could the scenes then and now, and circle features that were similar in both of them so that I could prove to you that I was looking at the same thing. You were looking at the same thing. And true confessions here, when I retired from the Globe as a reporter in 2003, I did 2 different climate change projects comparing scenes then and now, either leaning out of airplanes to look at glaciers from pioneer photographers, or going underneath to look at coral reefs by pioneer photographers. And by comparing them and circling the similar features, I can make an art advocacy statement, which frankly is what this current project of mine is. And it's very much an ongoing project with a wonderful drone photographer and in his own way, artist, by matching images then and now and creating animations and creating overlays. And without being too heady about it, I haven't seen this done before, the way Jameson Malgeri, who runs his own little company called Another Level Home Inspections. And he's local, and believe it or not, he uses a drone 1 every 10 inspections to look at roofs. And I Googled him, and he pops up, and sure enough, this guy just does magic with photos.
Okay, so let's summarize here. We started off talking about the exhibit that I assume you curated the exhibit and produced it, and that's at the Janet and William Ellery James Center at the Cape Ann Museum. That's up until July 30th. And then separate from that, but also in conjunction, you had a Cape Ann Museum talk this past Saturday, July 8th. And in that talk, you presented your photographs, right? That's what we're discussing now. And these are your pieces that, I guess, through drone imagery, because I have not seen them, I hasten to say, you are able to shoot photographs of the quarries. Am I getting this right?
Correct. I am able to replicate what was done in the early photographs, and getting the angles precise allows me to do overlays, or it allows Jameson. Let's not forget, he's the guy. He's the computer whiz. I'm lost in some of this technology, but with a precise overlay, you can really do magic, and he does magic. You can put the drone in places that I couldn't get to try to replicate the angles that people used 150 years ago. I mean, there was a point where I was in the brambles looking over a ledge at 75 years old, 4 years old, and thinking, I don't want to die here. So I was trying to think of how I'm going to get those angles. And that's when I thought of a drone.
So, and the reason you can't get those angles, and they could 100 years ago, is because it was dry grout. And it was just rock that people were standing on. And now this is all overgrown, if not filled in with water, right?
Correct. And the lowest I can go is the water level, because I can't go underneath and get the shot from up above. But so far, we're very pleased with what we've gotten.
Yeah. And can you say which quarries works best for you?
Well, the two that are so far the most, this just started. I had to, this whole thing only really launched about a month ago, the comparison part of this project. I was particularly taken by something called Big Pit, which is on Quarry Avenue on Bayview. And I was particularly taken by Canny Quarry, which is part of the Manship Estate and now the Manship Artist Residency. Thank you, Rebecca Reynolds, for letting me wander.
Right, right. And you were able to get the original photographs from the Sandy Bay Historical Museum, you said, and then from where else were you looking?
Cape Ann Museum has an amazing library collection of old quarry pictures, and some of them, Heather, are really sharp. I mean, they're and very, very textured and full of the grays that you'd like in a black and white photograph.
Right. We all know that from going to Feather and Wedge.
Yes. And Feather and Wedge, that imagery is from that image at Feather and Wedge is from Blood Ledge Quarry. And that's part of, that's just one, that's one of the ones that are comparing then and now. And I have circled in my presentation the features in both that prove to you that you're looking at the same thing. But that is very definitely one that Jameson and I will go back to. We really think of this as an ongoing, it is an ongoing project. Sawyer Library, Sawyer Library has expressed interest when they return to life in their refurbished building in 2025. But I'd like to think there are other venues here. And if the audience has thoughts about where else these photographs would do the work of nurturing respect for the quarries, I'd love to hear. And I'd love to share the pictures too.
Yeah, so you presented them at your talk on July 8th, along with the other artists. And is there any way to see them other than in your talk, which we will give the link to online?
At this point, it's all online. But I would love to. My only fear, Heather, is letting them out on public media, on social media, just because once it's out there, it's gone.
Right.
And there's probably less incentive for somebody who wants to make a statement by using our photographs. It's probably less incentive if it's out and floating around. So I'm cautious about just letting it go.
Mm-hmm.
But
So
I'd love to talk to anybody who has thoughts about how we could put these photos to work. Because I repeat, I haven't seen this, and I'm not just selling my own product, but I haven't seen this done before.
Well, I really look forward to watching them. Tell us about the rest of the presentation, the talk you had.
Well, it was a fun idea of trying to think of other mediums that are involved that use quarries as incentives or as catalysts for their art expression. I know that sounds sort of far out, but that's the point. And we had a sculptor. Martin Ray was a sculptor. We had Lisa Hahn, who's a producer in dance. We had Martha Fox read poetry. What else? There was painting. There was
Harpist. You had a harpist there, right? Doing some music.
we had a wonderful dynamic duo of Carol McIntyre as a harpist and Michael O'Leary as a bard, who had wonderful songs and a wonderful reflection on quarries. As the audience may know, Michael does a lot of singing on board some of the boats that tour the harbor.
Well, so this has been a huge amount of work and commitment from you. Tell us one more time, having seen the exhibit, having produced this talk on July 8th with all these artists, and then done so much of your own work. So where do you stand on quarries today? What do they mean to us today?
You're going to hear the welcome sounds of a grandchild who's just woken up from a nap, so please bear with it. So today, what is that? I was listening to the kid.
I know
What's the question again?
The question is, 100 years ago, quarries were an income. It was a workforce. It was an economy. Today, it is not that at all. And you've just put in all this work, all these hours thinking about quarries, having artists celebrate them. Make the connection in words. You've done it through photographs. Make it in words that what happened from 100 years ago and today. What is a quarry now? What does it mean to us? Why are we fascinated with it? It's entirely different than what it was 100 years ago, right?
It was entirely different. And to me, the significance is that as Cape Ann residents, we look at the maritime history as something to be very proud of. And not to deprecate the maritime history and the seafaring aspect of our life here, but that's out there. Quarries are something I think that are underrepresented in our appreciation for Cape Ann. And Heather, they're everywhere. The stone is everywhere that they pulled out. And I just dare you drive 100 yards anywhere in Cape Ann. And I'm not talking about curbs on roads. I'm talking about markers for driveways and houses and headquarters. It was an amazing tribute, or it was an amazing feat that they pulled off with.
Mhm.
They pulled off, and I'm not talking the Custom House Tower in Boston, the Longfellow Bridge. That yes, those are all examples. But the way this granite is instilled in our life, I just find fascinating, and I just want to pursue that message.
Mm. Well, thank you for all the work. The exhibit is beautiful. I did see that, and it's up till July 30th. And we're going to include the link to your talk, your July 8th talk, so people can see your images there also, and then hear and the words and music and all of the other speakers. So thank you so much for everything, and I look forward to seeing the pictures.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thanks. Interested in a sponsorship? Email sponsor at 1623studios.org to learn more.